Hello! Hello. No weird noises at the start of this episode this week. Although my camera's gone out of focus. Look at that. Anyway, you're listening to Loose Gadgies. This week, we're stepping into choosing your company wisely. I even came up with my own little inspirational quote when I set up my Facebook post. I was quite proud of myself. Maybe it's a little bit too much. I was pretty chuffed. Mark, how you doing?
All good.
What's the crack?
Yep. We normally do an episode recording on a Friday, but I was away last week in Denmark doing a bit of work. So we are here. What day is it today? Tuesday. In Geordie language.
It's got to end with a UH, not an AY.
That's easy for you to say.
Wednesday. Aye. And you just got to remove a bunch of letters from Wednesday.
How are you, man?
Wednesday. Quickfire questions this week, prepared by my very self in an evening, although admittedly I changed some of them this morning.
By the way, are they about this subject, are they?
Yep.
Good.
All about friends or groups and interactions with people. They're mostly friend related, and who you like to surround yourself with, and trying to narrow down some of those choices. Some of these things are choices I've actually consciously made, because that's just how my brain works. But I was quite pleased with my quote, if I do say so myself, thinking that today's choosing your company wisely is about who you choose to surround yourself with, but because of the marks that they leave on you, the effect, the impact they have on you, the way they change you, the things you adopt from them, the values you pick up from them, the understanding of the world that you pick up from them, which has been particularly important for me. Although I do tend to fact check even the people that I meet afterwards, so it'll go into sort of temporary storage in the back of my head, and I'll go, well, I'll check that when I get home. Even if it's an opinion on a person or something, it's like, well, I'll just hold that. I'll wait until I meet them and speak to them and see how right or wrong you are. Then I may tell you that you're wrong or not. So everyone is a compilation album. How about that? How about them apples?
Nice. I've got a vision of from your post of all of these albums stacked up. Yeah.
In our case, it's probably cassettes. Or when you used to make a mixtape for a girl you fancied.
Yeah. Or my VHS copy of Titanic was pretty worn at one point.
Was it? Well, one particular steamy moment.
Draw me like one of your girls. Yeah.
Aye. I still haven't seen that yet.
Yeah?
Still haven't seen it, and I just thought, it's just going to be a massive block of cheese. I'm not going to watch that. Can't stand cheese. Anything that makes me cringe, just I cannot.
You're right.
Just gonna do
He definitely could have fitted on the raft.
Well, do you know somebody has actually bothered to analyse that and has gone back to the movie, looked at the door, the type of door, how wide is the door, and tried to get it from the different angles shown on the movie, and said, what could he have fit on? And what about would it have floated? Would they have both? It's like, mate, was it worth it? Was it worth it? And so one person deemed, no, he couldn't, because this would have sank in. It's like, right, it's an entirely fictitious thing, or rather it's a dramatisation, right? And you've gone into fluid dynamics and weight distribution. Come on. It's a crappy movie about a boat and an iceberg. Although based on a true story.
Yeah.
Based on.
And as I used to call it in the late 90s, Titanic.
Titanic.
Bit of Kate Winslet.
Yeah. She was alright. She's alright. She's been in a couple of good things actually. I've seen her in one or two.
Yep.
Anyway, I think it was something you shared on your Facebook page years ago. And it's the first one to shout loses the argument.
Yeah,
I'm sure I got that from you back in the day, and I thought, do you know what? That's totally true. That what you find on here in these political arguments is one side always starts raising their voice and interrupting a lot, and saying, "Oh, I'm not finished. I'm not finished. Let me finish. You're not letting me finish." Say, well, you didn't let any of them finish when you originally interrupted to make your point. So
look,
I feel like if you just keep raising the volume, then don't raise. Oh, it wasn't. It was. Don't raise your volume. Improve your argument. It was something along those lines.
probably comes closely from Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, 1920.
I still haven't read
1929, I think that was wrote. But yeah, he basically just says you cannot win an argument because even if you think you've won, the other person resents you.
And that that little quote I sent you from Buddha and Buddhism the other
Little
day.
Buddha.
The one about anger.
Yeah.
Is I try to think of a less cheesy way to phrase it, because some of these things, you know, when you just see people posting images with a bit of text on it, and you think, well, you haven't really thought about what that meant. You just thought it sounded cool, and you've posted it on your Facebook wall, right? So, or your Instagram. Instagram's full of them. Absolutely, some of them are. Me and Sarah were laughing about some of this stuff the other day. It just makes me puke. Some of it. The anger quote was, holding on to your anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I wouldn't mind a better way of phrasing that, but it makes a bloody good point. That you're getting all furious. It was after you said, you make me so angry.
Yeah.
Are you blaming them? You're expecting them to feel the pain. You're causing yourself that pain. And they've just walked off and decided, oh, right, I'm going out for dinner.
Yeah.
And you're sat there fuming, absolutely fuming. You're even more fuming. I can't believe he didn't say he's just gone to dinner. I can't believe it. Why isn't he as upset as me? Why isn't he upset about that? Because he's probably dealt
Can you
with it.
believe him?
And maybe he's realised.
Can you believe him?
Can you believe him? Aye. And he's probably realised that this situation's getting a bit, I need to take myself out of it. So it's probably a case of that yeah, I don't want to get that invested or nasty into it, because it's not achieving anything. And then you get angry. So what do you mean it's not achieving anything? Well, we're not moving forward with this, and the whole point in talking is to resolve the issue, right? It's not to narc each other, is it?
Yeah.
So, I haven't heard that in a while. Narc. Are you narc?
Yeah.
Aye. And if you're offered a ride on a rocket ship, don't ask which seat, just get on board. Now, I puked a little bit when I heard that, but I thought, well, I like the sentiment in that if something's really taken off, don't panic about joining it. If you're offered the chance, just do it.
Well, it was the
the one I didn't understand. I still don't understand it was, in order to shit fire, one must first chew glass. I'm not quite. I think there's a message in there. As Keith Lemon might say, what's the message?
Go to the curry house down the big market, and you'll sort of get the analogy.
What's the message? That's one of my favourite phrases. What's the message? I started using that in meetings. So, what's the message?
I sort of thought about the subject, choose your company wisely. And a couple of bits I come to sort of the conclusion, and there's the bit about you sort of work out within the first 20 seconds whether you're going to like somebody or not, especially, if you're talking about sort of interviews and that sort of thing. And then I started thinking about, during our informative years, in your informative years, you don't get much of a choice because you're with your parents most of the time. But then when you venture out, and start playing with your mates, I always sort of look back at kids I went to school with, and the ones, I could have easily got on well with. And some of them ended up going to prison, and some of them were really successful. And you sort of look at yourself and you think, "Ooh, how did I sort of dodge the bullet?"
Yeah, that's quite the range, man. Yeah. Like prison or success.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is it Coronation Street are pulling a story, just to take one of the points you mentioned there, Coronation Street are pulling a story on a young kid that he's got involved in sort of left-wing, sort of racist group, and he's been sucked into that sort of mentality, and how easily it is to be sort of, let's just take, we have to be Newcastle United or Sunderland. Okay.
Yeah, derby days.
Well,
There has to be that extra level of competitiveness. It's not enough that football itself is competitive. There also has to be competition between teams within the same region. Like you have, is it Liverpool,
Everton, Man United,
Everton, all of that whole region is very. I mean, it gets very passionate. Living in Sheffield, my brother was telling us about some of the things that happened with the Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United teams, and they've actually got sort of informal clubs or gangs, if you like, and they arrange, physical meetups. So, well, what's that? Was this like Fight Club or something?
Yeah.
Or
but it's just how easily it could be that you get sucked in, and I think somebody said something a while ago about if you could go back to your school, what would you do? And take your point, rather than getting in with the in crowd, the good-looking ones, you'd have specifically gone with the nerds because they knew where they were going. We didn't, or I think I was sort of on the peripheral, and I didn't really know where I was going. But the nerds, in terms of education and sticking in and moving forward, they all seem to have a plan, didn't they? Where the, sexy kids who were in the group, they really didn't know where they were going.
it was this American example that somebody gave on a podcast that it was two things, and I've even got a real life example of this. Was one of them was that beauty is fleeting, and that they're used to getting everything for free and getting all of the attention, always getting a yes, and then eventually that starts to wane, but they haven't learned how to live any other way. And some don't recognise that that's why they are where they are, because of the way they look. They just think, oh, look, people are so nice. They're not really, in my opinion. People are dicks.
Yeah.
And I've spread that thought to a few people, but I feel like there's quite a lot of truth in it. As negative as it sounds, in my experience, people are dicks. People are generally quite selfish. And what I've also found myself, which was in this podcast as well, was that you end up standing on the shoulders of these nerds that you once
Ridiculed,
took the mick out of incessantly, pulled the pants down of, and all of this kind of stuff, that they end up either building the thing that you end up using to build your success on, or they end up becoming your boss.
Yeah.
So, and one example I had of this was this was years ago, when I was in Shields going in for an IT job at Shields Library. And after the interview, I thought, I could do it. I haven't eaten, as I usually don't. I always forget to eat. I still haven't eaten today. I always forget.
Should we go around to Dewhurst?
Dewhurst, bloody hell, that's a blast from the past, isn't it? I went into Greg's, right, for a pasty or a steak bake. I think they were still called pasties back then, weren't they? But I went in, and one of the people who used to absolutely tear strips off me at school was working behind the counter, and it was timed just perfectly, so they had to serve me. I hope. Look at this. You're in Greg's. I'm not knocking Greg's, right? But I was going for a job at the time. Back then, so it was a good
1874.
It was a good 20 years ago, right? So I was going in for a job that was towards the sort of 20 grand mark in IT. So back then, that was when I was earning. I managed to buy a flat earning 21 grand a year back then, which I subsequently sold. But with the price of everything back then, I just thought it was a bit of a moment. I came out of the shop and I thought, who would have thought? Who would have thought? I wonder if they recognised my face. I definitely recognised theirs. It was just an interesting moment in time where I find sometimes the universe throws you these little
nuggets,
things in. Look at where you're going, and you've got a plan. You've got some interviews set up. You've got a deliberate sort of course that you're trying to follow. Skills that you've accrued. All that time in your bedroom not getting any sunlight is now starting to pay dividends, and here we are in like 10 or more years later after school. She's in Greg's.
Yeah, I think the thing that I don't know about you, but going back to my school years, I thought about this the other day when we discussed the episode, and I thought, I was pretty static in terms of my circle in junior school. I was pretty static, but then as you moved into high school, I moved around quite a bit. I can't remember the reasons why, but I just remember moving from one group to another, and maybe subconsciously, and I sort of realised that that group had finished in terms of its value, or I was potentially going down a wrong route, and but I just remember going from different. So, and then you take that forward into workplace. And I think with the exception of yourself and one or two others, there's very few people I keep in touch with from the past. Very few.
Yeah, I'm sometimes an odd one out round a table when people say, I've known so-and-so for like 20 years, 30 years. I'm like, I'm probably maximum 10. So like since my 30s maybe. So it's been people I've ended up working with. I've got a few, acquaintances on Facebook that I used to hang out with in my 20s. Didn't have a falling out with, just life, changed.
Yeah.
I either moved somewhere, because I moved a lot back in the day, or shifts got in the way or something, and then you just gradually sort of drift. So if I ever bump into them in the street, surprisingly, quite often it's like it was yesterday, and we just talk about stuff, catch up on things, and pick up where we kind of left off. But most, it's like I don't need them anymore. I've got rid of a load of toxic stuff, loads, too much of it, and I won't put up with that these days. I won't. I'm far better at looking after myself that way than I was. Trying to say, it might. No, none of that. None of that anymore. So you're right. I don't really have a back catalogue of friendships. The ones I value the most are the ones I've made sort of. When did we first meet? It was like 2010.
Yeah.
So, sort of approximately around then, sort of jobs I've had since then, people we met. I've met some of the highest quality of people, I think, since then. I've still got a couple of friends that I'm more like acquaintances these days, but people I'm very happy to see, very happy to bump into. Especially, like me, at one of my brother's birthdays, our friends crossed over a lot. He invited a couple of people I hadn't seen in I don't know how long, and just seeing one or two of them stood in the corner, I just noticed I had this massive smile on my face. I was really happy to see them. I hadn't seen them in ages and talked about all sorts, and the night just disappeared. It just goes to show, you kind of drift apart, and real friendships don't necessarily have to have time limits on the gaps, and don't necessarily need heavy maintenance, right? In fact, they shouldn't need any maintenance, deliberate maintenance as such. I mean, we didn't, before, so that this past year where we started working together again, we spoke very infrequently. But then when we got together for that bit of work back in the last year before, it was like nouted. No time had passed. We just cracked on, and then seeing, when we went over to Copenhagen and bumped into Karsten and whatnot, that was just the same. It was.
I think
like no time had really passed.
They're the best type of relationships, in my opinion. Is that the ones where you switch off, switch on, and there's no resentment in the fact that you haven't spoke for a year or two. The ones that are really difficult for me, and I won't, are the ones where people say, "Oh, you can be asked to pick the phone up." Well, it's not about being asked. It's just life moves on.
There's two ends to the phone, though.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So I mean, they could.
It depends if it's a Nokia 3310 or a big 40 Galaxy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I don't mean the chocolate variety.
I mean, or even paper cups, right?
Yeah.
You've got two ends. You could have called. Well, you could have called me as well. But there's this expectation. But why didn't you?
A question that came to my mind there. I know you're doing quick fire, but if you could give a message to a 13-year-old self about how you deal with sort of choosing your company, what would your message you'd give to yourself?
Do you know, you know what I'm like for reflecting, right? So I've definitely asked myself this question many times, and my answer changes every time I look back. Like, don't go to that place.
In general, though, you can't. This is about, you can't pick that moment out. Mine would be just be aware of who you're with.
Yes, exactly. I was going to phrase it as, don't be so desperate for friendships. That if it's none, that's fine, because later on they will come. But you find that I didn't know then that what actually happens is you gravitate towards people. You bump into them in job. I wasn't thinking about jobs and this. I didn't know what it was like to be out in a job back then, and that in an office you do bump into people. You start sticking to certain people, and relationships form, and some of them stay. You're very much in the moment then. So you're right. If I could go back and say, look, don't be so anxious, desperate, and don't settle. Don't settle. And I quite often did, and it got me into all sorts of if I could just. It's funny, there was somebody posted that. Was it last year sometime? Saying if you could say, what 2 words would you give to your younger self? Of course, I just replied, Feuchtkekse, which is moist biscuits in German, right? I just thought, that's funny, because I couldn't think of what I would say, but it's those 2 words: don't settle.
Yeah.
For anything, don't settle. And I didn't value myself at all back then.
Moving the sort of that bit on about what you would choose, you then get into later stage of life, and how you use your knowledge to find your employer, or go self-employed, or as we've done. But none of us really think about the fact that we should be interviewing the organisation that we're going to work for. And does it?
Yeah, I only started doing that in sort of the latter part of my life, where I started thinking, are you a good fit for me?
Yeah. Otherwise, I was talking to a client this morning, and who shall remain nameless, but within 2 weeks they've let somebody go. And so, what does that tell us about how we were sort of assessing the fit of people? On
either side.
Yeah. And side. There's you pull my. Who was it I was talking about? Oh, I've not even got a CV, and I was like, don't put too much emphasis on the CV. You're going to have a discussion with somebody, and if I can read from a CV, I can make it up, and I can make me sound like a bloody brain surgeon, but it doesn't tell you who I am and what I'm about. And it's really about we know you can learn a process. You can learn a process, but who you are fundamentally is with who you've spent time and quality time with. And that's your values, but you need to be trying to match those values to your system, or it's not going to work.
Oh yeah, the last sort of long-term permanent job I had, when I first got there was a big problem with that clearly nobody had considered best fit. And then when when our new head of came in, he absolutely ransacked the place. He went, right, we need to start managing these people out, as you know, that phrase, managing them out, because they were toxic.
Yeah.
Always complaining, spreading little complaints, little whispers in the break room, and this and that. And you're like, we don't need that. These people don't really get on. And you could see how it affected productivity, how it affected the mood in the room, how it affected people just wanting to put their hand up to do things for others. And he cleaned the place out. He really did. Got it down to sort of a bare bones. And then, good to great. Yeah, that was one of your famous ones, isn't it? Good to great. And this is exactly what he did. And as managers, me and the other guys, he sat us down and went, right, I want to be part of your interviews. So we're going to do a 2-step process. And I want to sit in until I'm comfortable. We're going to do best fit, but I'll do the best fit. You do if you want to do a technical interview, if you want to do questions or some technical questions, whatever it is, you do that bit, but I want to bring them back in with you, but I want my own time with them. So you can have your interview, then we'll do a second stage with me and you, or we'll do the first one with me and you, but I just want to look at the fit. And you wanted to feel confident that after we did the interview roundup afterwards, you let me speak first and say, oh, well, I thought this and I thought this best fits. And eventually he got comfortable with us all. And he stopped just turning up.
Yeah.
He stopped having that second stage because he then got comfortable that we knew what he meant by best fit. And when we were picking best fit, we definitely were picking not just best fit for our little unit, but our main department. So not just our team within the department, but how's the whole department spread going to work? Because we're going to go on off-sites and little trips here and there, and how are we going to gel? So we got some very similar mindsets. Humour was a large driver because it diffuses all the stress. It became a main focus, one of the main focuses for me, that can they laugh at themselves? And I would ask questions like, how are you in your worst moment?
Yeah, like that.
Because some people are like, I would give an example, like, you know, are you the kind of person that looks for every reason on the outside to say, oh, well, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing it. Do you make people feel uncomfortable by, well, I just get my head down and crack on with it? I say, yeah, but then that makes you look standoffish, because I've done that. I've kind of just gone into a mood or a zone and went, right, I'm just going to, and I'm just not wanting to talk to anyone. That's not a way to, you know, making people feel like, don't come near me, don't come near me. You don't want that. You don't want to, especially when you're sat next to them, you know, more than 8 hours a day, especially in IT. You can easily, especially when you know what I'm like, 10, 12 hours wasn't unusual. And to be fair, doing an extra couple of hours a day in IT is almost expected when they say, well, we're paying you this, so you'll be in till it's done. So you need to be in that sort of high pressure environment when you've got these daft deadlines from people who don't understand what you do, to having all these different problems to fix. So you might need to firefight. Bunch of stuff goes down, right, you've got to be in at 10 p.m. to fix it. We've got to roll this stuff out, but when everybody else is at home, right, you're going to be in at midnight till 4 a.m. to roll this thing out. So best fit became probably bigger. I think I ended up employing someone on, have they got a basis? Have they got a little grounding? So most places in IT are like, well, do you want up to about 5 years experience or a degree in blah? I'm like, I don't even care about degrees. In fact, I'd rather you didn't have one. I'd much rather you had 2 to 5 years practical experience of doing the thing and knowing what it's like to work in that environment and working those problems out with other people in your head, on a whiteboard, wherever it is. I'd value that over someone doing 4 years of a degree, but they've got, you know, bits and pieces of practical experience. I mean, if someone came in with a degree, I would say, yeah, but do you do anything at home? Like, do you do this in your own time? Like, do you have a genuine interest in programming, or do you have a genuine interest in business intelligence, and to the point where, oh yeah, I've written my own little finance warehouse at home to do all my bills. That kind of stuff would win out over someone who said, oh, I've got like these 15 qualifications. I'm like, yeah, I'm not really. Sometimes I won't even bring them in for an interview. But some of them that had 2 years experience had good crack, but I felt I can teach you. You're like a sponge. I have a feeling if I sat next to you and just pointed out a bunch of stuff, you'd just soak it up because you're genuinely interested in what we're doing. I valued that more than all of this CV full of stuff and expertise and experience. I said, well, if you've got a couple of years, I think that's enough to bring you in, have a chat. If you're a good fit, and if I think you can pick this stuff up, I'll absolutely bring you on. Absolutely. And I haven't regretted it. I've done it a few times. I haven't regretted
It's sort of,
not once.
that bit about, spending time with quality company, it sort of also leads into, people perceive you as a leader, and that then moves on to actually becoming a leader. And, because you're taking the bits along the road and saying, I like that quality, I'm going to add that to me. Or actually, that's a really terrible quality from that individual, I'm leaving that behind.
That's a good way to phrase it. Yeah, it's a good way to phrase it. That's it. And it did. It made me into a better leader. It really did, because they made me feel like one, and that I'd made good decisions, and we collaborated so well, and things ran so smooth that it was rare we had a thing we needed to sit and sort out, or that as far as the way we integrated as a team, there were never any issues between us. If there were ever any issues, it was with one of the other teams in the department. It was never between us, our unit. We functioned really well, and we always put our head up and say, oh, this, have you got one of these, and do you think this should... It was always, didn't mind interrupt each other, passing a question, and we integrated really well. And that made me feel, as much as I always, question myself as a manager when I look back. And since I left, and the feedback they've given me as a mate on what I was like is, obviously I'm always my own harshest critic and whatnot. But yeah, the best fit.
Shall we?
Do
you want to test me? Do you want to give me?
Yeah. So
let me put my book back. The book I was looking at was Good to Great by Jim Collins, and it's really about, in an organisation, getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, the people that are on the bus, put them in the right seats, and then you can drive the bus forward or the organisation.
That's something I remember you did day one in 2010 when we were working in this country, when we moved to the other country, when we moved to Germany. The amount of times you mentioned good to great, everything is good to great in both process and people. And some managers seem to focus on one and not the other, but you can't get one without both. You have to do both for both to succeed.
When you have
I think
people in your organisation that for every solution they will find a problem, they're getting off the bus. For every problem, for every solution they find a problem, and that sort of toxicity, that toxic approach is infectious as well. I mean, there's a stronger word. Sometimes they use the word cancer, but it spreads, and you've got to be very careful, and you've got to really look to either help change or invoke change.
You changed me into someone who, rather than bringing you the problem, I would bring you the solutions and ask permission to put them into place. So rather than saying, this is bust, I would say, this is bust, but I want to do either this or this. And I remember at the very beginning, I was just more about, I've got this issue with this and this and this, and I'd want to rationalise it out, whereas I got used to saying, well, look, chill for a minute, pull this to bits. Right, listen, and I would just come and ask you permission. Like, can I roll this out? Or this one? And one of your most famous questions of all time that I still ask, and I ask everyone else, is, what does it give you? It's a great question. What does it give you? I've got this thing, it's got these bells and these whistles. Is this it? What does it give you? Spent 9 hours on it. What does it give you? Well, it's like a nicer version of this one. Right.
Yeah.
Same as when you're bringing up issues and problems. What does it give you? What does it give you to think like that? Where does it get you? So, quick fire questions.
Yes, let's go. Yeah.
Ready? So, number 1, no friends or a number of acquaintances.
Well, obviously a number of acquaintances. Can't have no friends.
Why not?
Well, if you've no friends versus some acquaintances.
Versus people that you don't connect with. So you'd rather have no connections and wait for a connection to come, or I probably haven't phrased this very well, or a number of people that are just, colleagues or people that you see occasionally.
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to get down to, the next question then is, I've originally phrased it as big circle or close-knit group, but it's quantity or quality.
Quality.
This is kind of what I was getting at with the first question. I should have looked at that more, I think. 3, we spoke about this. Mates rates are full price.
For me, it's full price. So, and we the reason we say that is because when we're in business like this, people take advantage. So if you're clear from the beginning that there's just one rate, then there is no issue.
Yeah, exactly, and it can create a little bit of animosity. And to be fair, if you're mates, you want your mates' business to do well, so you'll pay for it, won't you? And you know how good they are.
Does it say that I devalue your time by trying to negotiate your time?
Oh, but if it was going to take an hour, it takes me an hour and a half. Mates rates wise, I might not charge you for the extra 30 minutes, or something like that. But the initial price, I think it's a topic. I think it's a topic all of its own, because everybody has different, especially in Geordie land. Mates rates is a thing, right? Number 4, sorry. Extroverts or introverts?
Extroverts.
Yeah, I'm totally the opposite. Extroverts, I feel exhausted after being around a group of extroverts. It takes a lot out of me. And I've since learned from some books, I think you pointed me at, that's what happens. That extroverts feed on the energy from the introverts. So introverts need to be aware that they have to take time to recharge. And that's one thing that I never did. And I ended up near burning out more than once. Because I didn't realise that that's what was going on. 5, male or female?
Male. And I just say that because I tend to push the boundaries in terms of conversation and humour, and it's much easier with the blokes. Sorry.
Well, you'd say that. You say that.
I've met.
Most of my friends have ended up being female across the years, and if you ask Sarah, I definitely my humour boundaries, even in the office.
Yeah.
Can be.
I mightn't have said it years ago, but
funny, filthy, but filthy.
Yeah, I think in terms of the political correctness these days, I think I'd just be really careful and stick to what I.
Oh yeah. These days I'd be a little less inclined to, unless I could be absolutely sure of the company. But yeah, I've definitely pushed boundaries. Never intentionally, just stuff comes out my mouth.
Good question though.
So age matters or doesn't?
Say that again. Age.
Yeah. So older, younger, same age.
Age doesn't matter because I'm using it in my own context. If you want, you're learning and you're supporting and giving till you decide you're not. So
what I found generally is I never used to get on with people my own age. It was always younger because I've always had a younger mindset. And whether that was 5 years or what have you, it was always people that are younger than me. As it was rare, and then I guess as I've got older, I've realised that really age has not a lot to do with it. It's to do with personality, wisdom. I've found some young people young people compared to me that have some wisdom, because it's all about the things that the person experiences and things that they've been through. So I wouldn't immediately exclude someone just because they're 21 and say, look at them. with their Instagrams and their... So, like-minded or opposite?
Oh, I've got to say opposite. Even though it's easy when they're like-minded.
Is you and I at school probably wouldn't have hung out.
No.
Because we were in the opposite club. You were in the jocks and I was in the nerds, right?
Yeah. But what I've learned is, and it is still quite difficult, is that, a different perspective just makes you learn and think. Whereas like-minded, you don't move forward as quickly.
Yeah, it's fair. Although I think it depends on what sort of resolution you're looking at. So if you mean like-minded in humour or like-minded in some of your interests that you can share, yeah. But if you're a same thinker overall, you're right. You're never going to be experiencing new things, right? If you're hanging around, it's like what I find on social media is it's very easy to be radicalized on social media because of the way the algorithm works. You watch some of one thing, you watch more of it. Social media platforms just want engagement. They don't care what kind of engagement it is. They just want you to sit there looking, right? So if you end up accidentally watching a few things about X, Y, and Z, you're going to get more of that X, Y, and Z. It's going to keep teasing you. Oh, you spent a bit longer on that one. Let's send him another one. And before you know it, you're into conspiracy theories. I found this. I was researching some stuff on NASA and the space station and how it looks like they're being held up by wires. And there were some videos I couldn't explain. I still can't explain. Especially given the way I think. I was like, no, there has to be an answer. But that looks... And I just kept looking at more. And then I just started getting more and more. And then I stopped. It got to late one night. I just stopped and went, hold on a minute. I'm going down a rabbit hole here. And I'm starting to get involved in it. And it was at that moment I realised it's so easy to radicalise yourself when you only surround yourself with people who are saying yes to the same things. If you surround yourself with people that agree with you, so if you have an opinion on immigration or Brexit or whatever it is, and you only hang around with people that have the same opinion, like confirmation bias, in other words. In science, you try and disprove a theory, and it remains true until it's disproven. Whereas if you try and prove that it is true, you're going to end up with confirmation bias. And it's the same with political opinions and opinions about life, that if you only surround yourself with people that say, oh yeah, that's how that is, that's definitely how that is, then you're just going to end up in these Facebook groups with all these people that say, yeah, this is this and this is that, and then that group just gets bigger and bigger because they want to find people who agree with them. They end up in their own little niche. That niche becomes a group, and you need to find people with the opposite opinions to challenge yourself and see if that's true or not. Which leads me up to that might have spoiled my last question. Anyway, so number 8, time spent. I couldn't narrow this down to 2 options, so I just thought regularly, irregularly, or it's not important. So do you need to have regular contact? Irregular? Do you prefer irregular contact, or does it not matter how often you spend?
Doesn't matter.
Time with someone?
The example I give is probably my son. It's not important when we speak. We both enjoy it, but we don't plan it. It just is infrequent, and that goes for some of the odd friend I've got here and there. So it's not important. I don't miss it, but I enjoy it when I get it.
I feel conscious about that because my autistic noggin doesn't really make connections that way, and that I can happily not speak to anyone for ages. Because and if someone leaves my life, I don't dwell on it. I'm not necessarily capable of dwelling on it in that way unless I make myself so.
I realise I'm not the instigator of, like, say, chats on WhatsApp or Messenger. I'm not the instigator, but I will participate. But maybe that's a little bit selfish. I don't know. It's just the way I am.
Yeah, I sometimes worry about it because sometimes I've tried to make an effort, and if I have the thought about the person, rather than just letting that go, sometimes I'll just go, let's send a funny thing. Or if I'll see something funny and it would be funny to share it, I go, well, why not share it then? this is a good reason to kind of go, which is what I've kind of done with you. I've done with a couple of just, I'll just copy paste that link into there. You seen this? You see how daft this is? And I'm done. It's made me feel less bad about it. Although it's never had a negative impact. No one's ever griefed me about it, but I griefed myself about it.
How's that working out for you?
I think just as I'm moving on, I think I'm chilling out and something like that. And plus, since you know, me old diagnosis, I've started to chill out about something. I say, well, look, if I'm not good at that thing, and I'm never going to be good at that thing because I can't be good at that thing, like it's never going to stick. Why am I getting at myself about it? Why am I making notes everywhere and little reminders to make sure that I do a certain thing? And if I think about it, have I been griefed about it? No, no one's really. Well, the people I really care about don't grief me about it. The people who really know me don't. So let it go.
Yeah, Frozen.
Oh no, I'm gonna get that song stuck in my head.
Yeah, Elsa, come on, Elsa.
If I say a sentence with the same words and cadences that happens in the song, the song appears in my head. It does me head in. Right, so 9, thinkers or doers?
Doers, always.
Really?
Yeah, because you can plan to the nth degree and you're not taking a step forward. You need to take that step. Is there any instance where actually a thinker is better? Not necessarily in, planning things to an nth degree, like a friend we may or may not have been talking about recently. Overthinking, but a thinker as in someone who's good at finding, rather than just charging in, actually goes, hold on, there's a strategy to this. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the point being is that I choose one or the other, and I see. I definitely see the benefits in both, but I see people's frustrations, the fact that they overthink so much stuff and spend so much time on it when nobody else gives a shit.
Yeah, I learned that pretty quickly through you.
Nobody else cares.
What?
Okay.
You worry about that. This could be a good time to mention the what was it, the 37 or 39 quid I couldn't find.
Yeah.
When I did the first stock take, I came into your room going, I can't find this amount. I've changed the formulas. I've checked the way I've imported the counts. I've checked the count sheets. And you're like, what? Well, how much is it now? And I think it's about 39 quid. And you went, oh, you had me.
Well, bearing in mind, in terms of a stock level, we're talking about some stock worth close to 100 million sterling, and you're talking about 39 quid.
Yeah, well, I didn't have context at the time. I didn't know what was bad and what was good. I'll not swear,
but I think I asked you to get out of my office. Yeah. And it began with an F and ended with an O. And I can't spell because it ended with an F.
Well, your first response was definitely F me. You had me going there thinking there was something actually wrong. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Just
nobody
move on.
cares. The amount of time you spent thinking about 39 quid, you've just burnt that in your salary.
Nah. I've learned a lot about context and time and all sorts. But working in warehousing taught me more than just stuff about warehousing. It opened my eyes to a lot. I would not change that for sure. What I've picked up from all that time working in the warehousing side, and as challenging as it was, especially the stock takes and this and that, it fitted me to a T, the stuff that I picked up. So number 10, do you prefer a challenger or a follower?
Oh, now you're talking. I've got to go follower on that one.
Really?
Because I said the opposite on the other question, I'm going to go this way on that one. So
you prefer a doer that follows with you on the team on the journey, rather than a thinker that might challenge what you're doing.
Because some of the challenges I've been with, they just never end. And at some point you can challenge, but then you have to agree we're going forward, and then you've got to sing the song and sing the song that the team are singing, even if you're chewing a wasp, you know. And I've been with too many people that they just wouldn't let it go, wouldn't let it lie.
You wouldn't let it lie. You're looking at my bra. Do you remember that? Oh, it's a shoe cake, cakey shoe. Vic and Bob.
No, they were good then. Well done. That was your first go at them, wasn't it?
It was, and challenger or follower. Just for the record, I started out as a challenger, and I think I'm still a challenger. But I've learned limits, and I've learned when to stop. I've learned when it's valuable and when it's not.
Yeah.
So I'm still the same person, but I've learned context and when it's appropriate, and when to stop.
Yeah.
So I'm not much of a follower, but I've learned following elements.
Right.
I know when to.
In terms of warehouse environment that we've been talking about, I would sort of answer it in the follower. But the fact that I do a bit of coaching as well, the coaching is the challenge. I challenge the people to think differently in their perspective. So, you know, you are not looking to agree with somebody that you're sitting with on a one-to-one or a group basis. You're actually looking to challenge their thought process, because some of them will be stuck in a fixed mindset and they need to have a growth mindset and move out of it. So,
yeah. So it can be a little bit context or situation dependent as well.
Of course,
you can say something in the whole, but in the whole, something on the whole is one way, but
we're not on the flat.
But it can be, it can change in a situation. But yeah, it's interesting that I'm sort of, there's a couple of opposites there for me, but it has pointed out to me how the time we've spent since 2010 has influenced me and you, and where we might have been back then versus where we are now. I can look back and see quite a lot of growth, personal growth since 2010. I was not ready to manage back then, and working with you, by the time I did, I was ready. And I wouldn't have been had I not had that experience of the challenges that I had, not just work-based, but on the way I think. I've benefited from it. And then I benefited from having that management experience and having all of that well before I'd started working for myself. Rather than just... Some people succeed, you know, they pile in, work for themselves from the get-go. Not the gecko, as they say on Twitter, the gecko. From the get-go? What do you mean? What's a lizard got to do with it? But they'll retweet it and think it's from the gecko, from the get-go.
Yeah. What have we?
But I appreciate all the experience I picked up in between.
It's a journey, you know, and we continue the journey. Speaking of journeys, what are we doing next? Next episode?
That's a good question, because I looked at the 4,000 weeks one, but I don't know whether that was too close to what we've already done, and perhaps we should pick something that's a bit further out. But then the episodes won't nicely flow. So I don't know. What's your thoughts? Because there's a ton to choose from, and I put them in different groups. So we've had one from the me I am was fear.
Is that Will I Am?
The me yet the me yet to be was choose your company wisely, and then obviously the first one was the opener, was the year on year. But then we've got the group 4, which was like habits and food, alcohol, sleep. Yeah, I could do a whole bunch of stuff on sleep.
Well, I tell you what. Let's because I've just finished with a client this morning. I've just done biological time clock, which focuses very much on understanding sleep and how sleep doesn't have to be a monoblock, as you will tell me, but it can be a variation of a monoblock.
Oh, do you know? I've started having 2 sleeps. In these past few weeks, off and on, I've been doing 4 hours and 4 hours, or 4 hours and 2 hours. It's probably more like maybe 3 hours. I average somewhere between 6 and 7, but I've been doing it in 2 chunks and just passing out on the sofa. It started out involuntary because I was working myself too long, and then I found that I have a bit more clarity rather than sort of getting up and then working until I'm knackered. I get up, have a bunch of productive hours, nap, get up, make another cup of tea, obviously, and then those other whatever hours I do after that are probably more productive than doing them consecutively. And it was that Dr. Is it Michael Mosley? Is that his name? He's done a few different series and books. He's the guy that advocates taking like an espresso shot, go for a 20-minute nap. It takes about 20 minutes for the caffeine to hit your system.
Like it.
And you'll wake up refreshed. So he believes in micro sleeps and having these little sort of nap things where you just refresh your brain.
Japanese.
It didn't occur to me that until I started watching people like him. So, well, your brain can only focus for 4 hours at a time, and I implemented that sort of strategy in my team. That look, I don't expect you to be head down for 8 hours. Get up, walk about. Let's go for a car park walk. We'll go walk around the car park. We'll get away from the screens for a bit. Go off and make it. So I didn't. I'd be worried if someone was, which was often me, just head down, type, and just cracking on and say, yeah, but it's gonna. Wait, you need to get away. I've had loads of epiphanies just by going for a walk around the car park and stepping away from the screen. What?
I do my best thinking sometimes in the morning, but that's a different story.
Oh, on the pooper.
Right, let's draw this to a conclusion.
Yes, so
Sweet, next one. Yep.
Yeah, have you got plenty to say on that?
Loads.
Or is it just me?
No, I've got.
Have you had to deal with any?
Well, I've just done an hour session, and 3/4 of it I was talking about sleep
Rest. Yeah.
and how correct rest and allowing workers to rest in work time will have efficiency, productivity, and accuracy benefits.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, especially in stock counts. You're going to have
Remember,
that.
we'll not do it now, but we'll talk about how we instigated relaxation breaks in the warehouse in the afternoon because of the error rate.
Ooh.
How about that one?
So you actually got some statistical evidence.
Got them.
So we can mix that in with sleep and good habits. Because habits was another one. And it would seem that sleep and although that mixes into food and alcohol and all. So sleep,
we'll
why
stick
not?
with sleep and see how we get on.
And I guess later on would be I definitely think we should cover regrets at some point.
Yeah.
Because that leaves regrets. The regret itself, or the thing that you regret, can leave damage, but regretting it can leave damage of its own. And it's a hefty, valuable subject, I think. So.
Big one.
And you can lose sleep over it. So maybe it's the one after that we head towards regrets. And I definitely want to do some productivity. We've already done what would you tell your younger self, but the prove yourself versus improve yourself, talent versus effort, those sorts of things later on down the line. So just to give people a feel of what might be coming up, and being humble. I sometimes find there's not enough of that. Or modesty.
Yeah.
You can have Anyway, so next time, sleeping habits.
Let's do that.
Right, that was a good session. Time to get ahead.
I need to hit the road, as they say.
Yeah, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. Check out the Facebook page. We are at Loose Gadgies in all of these different platforms. But we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.